Hello and welcome! Have you ever turned on the TV to watch something new to find what would appear to be an innocent cartoon show, only to later discover that it was anything but? That was my initial experience watching Ren and Stimpy, a Nickelodeon cartoon which I enjoy to this day, but in smaller doses. I heard about the show for years, but weirdly my first experience with it was with a strangely fun and interesting Sega Genesis game, Stimpy's Invention. So today I thought it'd be fun to go back and see how the developers Blue Sky Software were able to adapt the weird, dark, and wacky world of Ren and Stimpy into a video game. Today's video is sponsored by us at 16-Bit Games. 16-Bit Games has a variety of mobile games available on Android and iOS. They're fun, fast action games designed with mobile devices in mind, which means they all look, play, and control well, no matter what device you have. Play them today for free from the links in the description below. Now, for those who haven't actually seen the original episode, Stimpy's Invention was originally supposed to be a hat to help make Ren happy. Whether Ren wanted to be happy at that moment, not. But sadly, the only thing that's actually here from the original Stimpy's Invention, other than my favorite Stinky Whistleteeth song, is the name. Everything else about the story and the invention is different. Now, the invention turns ordinary garbage into food, and the plot is all about fixing it when it explodes and creates chaos everywhere. From a standpoint of a Ren and Stimpy episode, it's actually rather straightforward, but I can get behind it. And that straightforward nature bleeds into the game itself. The game is just a simple 2D platformer with a simple goal of making it to the end of the level just to progress. And from what I've played thus far in the game, it feels like the game itself is just playing it safe. The platforming is fun and not that much of a challenge if you can figure out the many actions that your characters can do, and the two-player mechanics are surprisingly fun, especially when you work out all those little intricate moves that you can do. And it actually works well if you do happen to find another person to play with you. And the only weird and wacky thing that I've found about this game thus far is its enemy designs and platforms. The way the game looks and sounds feels safe, too. The game sounds like a generic Genesis game. Eventually, the game does its best to look like the cartoons show with some attention to detail, but it never really feels as expressive as the show can be. I do enjoy the small visual references from the cartoon that's littered around here and there, like the bird sitting on top of the hippo's heads, to the powdered toast and gritty kitty that's littering the levels as health and point pickups. The game is like a Where's Waldo book of Ren and Stimpy. It's fun to find the rare and obscure references from the first 2 seasons of the show. But despite how it all looks and sounds, even with Log leading the Sega logo, this game just doesn't feel like a Ren and Stimpy cartoon adapted into a video game. It just feels too safe for a cartoon, which really wasn't. And I know, I'm only at the monkey level, and I probably could play a little more, but this is a licensed game. They wanted to put more effort in than just making it a bare-bones, basic, generic platformer. It's just going to be a platformer throughout. And you know what? I'm so confident that the rest of the game is just going to be a platformer. I'm willing to bet $20 that the game will not be anything different than a platformer for the rest of it. Let me try that again. Despite the fact that on the surface this game looks and sounds like a straightforward and generic 2D platformer with the Ren and Stimpy show painted on top, that totally didn't fool me into thinking that it would be the same underneath. You see, underneath that very thinly veiled disguise, the game has a lot of new gameplay styles that just shows up out of random in between the generic platforming stages. that isn't explained at all, even in any of the game's manuals, and is like a slap in the face in terms of difficulty, doesn't apologize for itself, and just never shows up again. In terms of a gameplay, it's an odd choice since it absolutely ruins the flow of the game. But I feel if the original creators were to actually make a video game, it's absolutely something that they would do. It's crazy, it's out of left field, it makes absolutely no sense. But with this game, with these characters, I think it works. I mean, there's only one boss fight in this game, and the only way you'll ever know how to win is to watch the show and realize that you'll have to wait for the boss to throw the fight. How would you know that? I only really have two complaints about this game. The first is that I feel the dog catcher level is a little too cruel. Your characters are a little too big for all the obstacles and projectiles that are going to be coming at you on screen. And unless you've memorized everything, you're almost guaranteed a game over here unless you're on easy. And apart from the opening screen, I feel that the narrative is basically abandoned, other than the occasional end item goal, which is surprisingly difficult to miss. This would have been fine back in 1993 when the game came out, but nowadays, I feel it's a little bit abrupt when the game just ends with no sense of closure. So, is Stimpy's Invention worth getting today? And as a game, I like it. The platforming levels are challenging and it does mix things up a bit with the more unique and fun gameplay levels, for the most part. But as an adaptation of the Ren Stimpy show, I feel as if the game fell flat. The game was so fixated on trying to emulate the show as a video game that it wasn't trying to adapt the show for the hardware that it was on. And as a result, it was able to emulate a bit of the show in the gameplay, but it just ends up feeling confusing rather than amusing. But despite that, the Ren and Stimpy show's Stimpy's Invention is the most unique and interesting licensed game that I've personally played on the Genesis, and it's a lot more interesting than other licensed platformers from the time. If that sounds interesting to you, then I'd say pick it up. If not, well, there's a lot better platformers on the Genesis than this. But anyways, thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you have yourself a good day, and as always, take care. And don't forget, every Friday there's a new poll for the 16-bit viewers special. Vote for which games you want to see us review in this channel's community tab. Links will be provided below.